Okay, good morning. This is Miss Triangle. This is your video for 5-2 on congruent polygons. So put the dates and the topic in the top right. Set up your lines. You're going to copy your EQ. What are corresponding parts? And how do they relate to congruent figures? What are corresponding parts? How do they relate to congruent figures? We're on learning target 5B. I can identify corresponding parts and can prove figures congruent. All right, our first vocab word, corresponding parts. So they appear in the same place. It's kind of like corresponding angles. We talked about transversals. Okay, so you're going to want to draw this diagram right here to kind of help you. So corresponding angles, those are the red angles, angle A and angle D, and they are congruent. They are the same size. Angle B and angle E, they are also congruent. Angle C and angle F. Okay, so they are congruent and they are the same spot. And same thing for the sides. So in a triangle, there are 3 corresponding angles and 3 corresponding sides. All right, congruent figures. 2 polygons are congruent if they're the same size and shape. That is, their corresponding angles and corresponding sides are equal. All right, so they should be exactly identical. So summarize what you want to write down. If you want to do the picture, if you just want to say identical, same size and shape, kind of up to you what you think would be helpful, but there should be something for congruent figures. All right, then we have the properties. So these properties also apply to triangles. Okay. So reflexive, basically any triangle is equal to itself, is congruent to itself. Okay. Symmetric is basically you can change the order. And transitive is when you have kind of that chain. Okay. If 1 then 2 and 2 then 3 then 1 then 3 is basically the transitive property. So pause the video, write something down for those. All right, what is the third angle? So basically, if you know 2 angles, so in this diagram, we know angle A and angle D are congruent. We know angle B and angle E. Then we can also conclude the third angle. So let's just put some numbers in that may help you. So basically, if A is 50 and D is 50, and we know that, and B is 70 and E is 70, and we know that, then we can also conclude that these angles are congruent because every triangle has 180 degrees, so those would both have to be 60. So basically, if you know 2 of the angles are congruent, then you also know all 3. That is what the third angle theorem is saying. So pause the video if you need more time for that. All right, example problems. So write a congruent statement for the triangles. Identify all pairs of congruent and corresponding parts. So we're going to have 6 things. So I'm going to start with the angles. I'm going to start with angle L. Angle L right here in red, 1 tick mark, is congruent to angle R. How do I know that? They both have 1 tick mark. Okay, angle J with 2 tick marks. Angle J is congruent to angle T. And angle K with 3 lines is congruent to angle S. So that's my angles. Then I'm going to do my sides. So let's see. Let's start with JK with 1 tick mark right here. JK is congruent to TS. Oops, nope. I just drew that in the wrong place, didn't I? To TS. Okay, LK, which goes from 1 to 3 and has 2 lines. Okay, is congruent RS. LK and RS. And lastly, I have LJ is congruent to RT. Okay. Then my congruent statement is saying that the two triangles are congruent. I can do that now that I've shown all three angles and all three pairs of sides are congruent. So I'm gonna just use this order right here, LJK. So triangle LJK is congruent to triangle, and I need to use the same order, RTS. Now this is not the only answer. You don't need to put all these, but I could also say like JKL goes with TSR. So they should be in order, like J and T should be corresponding, K and S, etc., etc. So that order does matter. All right, I'll give you a second to set up problem 2 as I read it. If you need to pause it, go ahead. In the diagram, DEFG is congruent to SPQR. Part A, find the value of X. So for part A, let's start with X. So basically they're congruent. I know they're congruent. So right here, this side is congruent. QR. QR is the last two letters. So QR is congruent to FG, which is 12. So I'm going to say 2x minus 4 equals 12. I'm going to solve for x. And x equals 8. For part B, find the value of y. So let's think about this one here. So I'm going to say I need to find y. So here's y, which is angle Q. Q is the third one. That goes with F, with 68. So 6y plus x equals 68. And then I do know that x is 8, right? X is 8. We just found that. So I'm going to go ahead and plug that in. So 6y plus 8 equals 68. And I'm going to solve. I'm going to minus 8. 6y equals 60. Divide by 6. And y equals 10. Okay. So pause the video if you need to write anything down. I'm going to keep going.